Hello, everyone. I don't know if this is game 2 or 3, but I will try to find out after we introduce the players. In the bottom right of Pylon, it is Geralt, and in the top left, it is Byon. And they just played a 36-minute game. A lot of the commentators were waiting on the NA server for the results, as the winner of this does go on to face Classic. And we were, I think we all were capable of seeing either Byon's or Geralt's friend list thingy where it tells you if they've been in game, and it says in game X amount of minutes. Yeah, I get up to like 36. So that's a pretty freaking long game. I don't have any idea what happened, but certainly there was some type of late game and then possibly a base trade. Or just a really turtley game. I'm kind of thinking more base trade, if I were to guess, but I really don't have to. It does look like Geralt won game 1. So there you have it. It is game 2 now. Which, you know, is not that surprising. It actually... I don't want to say, you know, because of the patch, necessarily. I don't want to not give Geralt credit, because I think that's wrong. But, you know, Geralt has had trouble versus Terran for most of his career. And occasionally would have a series where he didn't have trouble versus a Terran, where he actually looked like he was really on point. A lot of his problems seem to center around the first move out by the Terran. Not the first drop or harassment, but the first actual like push by them. And then just having seemingly a fine setup and then just kind of dropping the ball, basically. So if he fixed that, then he actually could look totally fine in PvT. And I think if you do couple that with the new PvT that we have, a lot of Terrans are feeling more nervous against Protoss, and that can create some... It creates some problems, even outside of balance. Obviously, the way that you perceive a matchup can change how you play it, and that can actually make you play a little worse for a time. But I just have no idea what happened. I don't, but I can envision in my brain that there was a back and forth. Nicely done there by Geralt. There was a back and forth, and then there was maybe some base snipes. There was some... a pseudo base race where, you know, really Geralt's on top of this, man. Where Byon was trying to, you know, be fancy with the medevac dropping around and stuff. Like, I could easily see that. But I will also say, with the new meta, I could easily also see it being the Protoss tried to infiltrate the third. Byon was able to turtle correctly, got to a fourth, really played quite a turtle game. And then that's why I extended so long as well. Because that's actually not something that Byon is unfamiliar with. It's not necessarily what this matchup has been all about, but there have been times where Terran have been forced into a more defensive scenario, and also TVZ, TVT have all, of course, had real turtle Terran styles, and Byon's been through all of that. So, I mean, a 36-minute game, there's so many things that could have happened. But this Geralt looks very much on point. I mean, he was allowed, because of the lack of units other than the Widow Mines, he was allowed to do all that fancy footwork, but then he catches the medevac and should be able to escape here. Blink is almost done, so really should not be losing any stalkers, plus they outrange Marines, so that they really should never die. And it looks like Byon's having a very tough game. Despite winning game, or despite being, I think, the favorites, he did not win game 1. And then does not look to be winning game 2. And maybe we shouldn't be looking at him as the favorite. He's got a very well-established career compared to Geralt, but Geralt seems to have a real handle on PvT. Third CC is on the way for Byon. He's been incorporating some more of those 2 base all-ins versus, well, MaxPax, I guess. And that doesn't seem to work that often. And I don't know if this would have been a great map for it in general, but 3cc it is. This is something that Geralt is able to see very easily with the Observer. Doesn't even have to actually get that deep into the base to see the third. It was positioned closer to the actual taking of the third than trying to be secretive. Stalkers find a free tank, and this is just a very gross game for Byon. After losing game 1 in a 36-minute game, your Widow Mine drop is a failure. Your tank gets deleted. You're being constantly scanned, constantly observed, I should say. And it just doesn't feel like you can do very much. What Byon currently is doing is getting some auto turret harassment. That's nice. But 5 probes, while good, it is 5 probes after Geralt has been saturated on 3 bases, so it's really not the most effective. It's not hitting 5 probes at, 4.5 minutes. It's when they have 3 Nexus, full saturation, and also 3 Chrono available. It's not making Geralt blink, that's for sure. Geralt knows that is a minor nuisance that he should be pulling away faster from if he's really being, perfectionist. But otherwise, the bones are good. The roots are good here. Stalkers, they do miss the move out, but it's the Observer that was tracking them anyway, so it's not so much that they missed it as that they were looking for the opportunity to collect a couple of reinforcing units, maybe even some SCVs if Byon really didn't want to turn around. Byon did turn around, and Geralt, maybe a little late to the pullback here, is going to lose 3, maybe 4 Stalkers. And that sucks, but it's also so much time that you still know you have. The Terran is not getting their move out, basically. Byon, I think, is already resigned to not really being able to move out on the map and do anything against Geralt's setup. Maybe if he was allowed to go across the map when he first started to move, he would have tried to dance around the 4th base, but the Stalkers, they bought that extra 20 seconds, whatever it is, and, I don't know if I had faith in it, even if he had pulled the trigger, but we do see that Geralt is a little more concerned with the Raven, so there might have been an opportunity for the Bio to come in. Kind of a perfect case scenario is that the army was still a little disjointed, and then they come in and maybe pop the building forth, but that should never happen, because Geralt has full vision of what is going on with his observers and his map control. One of the observers was killed, thankfully, but another one still exists and could position itself into a better location. A pylon's placed in the middle just in case Geralt gets no other way of seeing where the army is going into. He already is up to 3 Colossus, War Prism on the way, Extended Thermal Lance is done. We even got Double Forge researching at this point with Storm, Warp Prism Speed 2. Good lord, that's like everything you would need. And a little bit more. And this is clearly a game that's going to go on for a while. So this could have been how we got to that 36-minute game in game 1. It's just that no one really wanted to battle it out. Certainly the Terran in this type of game doesn't want to be the one to move out. Seems like a lost cause until they have enough Vikings and their EMPs. But for the Protoss, they could move out. In fact, that's more often what we would see if this was MaxPax, for instance. We would have seen a move out with those Colossus into the 3rd. Because you don't have to take a direct fight. You don't have to really engage, ideally. You just kind of abuse the choke, move in, kill a couple supply depots, kill the sensor tower, for instance, maybe force a stim. They try and push you away, and, it's just medevac energy being burnt. And whatever else you can collect at that time as well is cherry on top. Certainly with Byon not giving away that many units, except that first Widow Mine dropped, it wouldn't be the easiest push, but maybe could have controlled the choke. In this case, Geralt actually is not in a choke. He does run back to it, but he was supposed to get a little more notice that the army was incoming to let the first Colossus die almost instantly, and the second one die with no repercussions, basically. Right? It was a blitz there from Byon that Geralt was not expecting. Is not what you want. But Geralt, again, has such a strong foundation. 5 bases, 11 gateways, going up to triple robo as well. Upgrades we're all going to finish too. Less than ideal, sure. But it seems like in the pacing of this matchup, the Colossus were kind of already supposed to be phasing out anyway. You just don't usually want to phase them out immediately. You kind of want to let them actually do something. But we're going to move into Disruptors. This mass gateway army with disruptors coming in from different locations, and it's already happening. Zealots on the left side killing 9 SCVs. Storm right in the middle of the army by the looks of things. Finally, the EMP does get rid of the Storm, but didn't quite catch it initially. Vikings getting taken down, maybe opening up the opportunity for Colossus in the future. And somehow that one Colossus does continue to live. This is the next 5 minutes, probably. It is Geralt keeping pressure on the Terran, and then the Terran looking for the best possible engagement. A Terran can't really be moving around a lot in this case. Certainly you can divvy up your army to protect your 4th and your 3rd base, but even that, it could be problematic if the Protoss isn't divvying up their army. Theoretically, in ideal scenarios, with Widow Mines planted, Bio being controlled, the EMPs hitting all of the armies, Medivacs being available, theoretically, the Terran should be able to hold it a little less on either side. So, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to point out what good is going on for the Terran here, but that is theoretically. Once Byon gets too centered on the attack over here, that's a little more complicated. This is the bulk of the Protoss army, and he's got to control his Raven, Viking, and the Ghosts. He might not look at his army over there, and then that army gets dragged out into the open and gets surrounded by Zealots before he realizes. It shouldn't happen. This is Byon using what is usually very high APM and EPM, right, to try and make sure that neither one of these things go poorly, but it can happen. Disruptors forcing tons of focus on the right side just gives such an opportunity for the Zealots to go in on the left. It does look like Byon has secured 4 bases. That's great, but Geralt's not been lacking on the macro behind this, going up to 6 bases. Finally, Byon does move out. This was initially the squad guarding the 3rd, decides that it needs to do something, and perhaps the Zealots aren't attempting to attack his 3rd, so he's going to try and go for it. This is also up. Oh my god. How did I completely miss that? I guess I just thought it was more army. Jesus. Okay. So Geralt is up to 7 bases. Byon, he moves out with this army, and he could have probably gotten a snipe on this base. Geralt is almost maxed out. He doesn't have a lot of reinforcements for these emergencies, and he pulled those Zealots, good lord, into the main army as well once it looked like Byon was going to push into his base. So Byon actually could have done something with this army that he's now pulled back entirely. As of right now, it's actually just... it's doing absolutely nothing. It does finally come together. Planetary also helping every time Geralt tries to push any farther. Geralt is building up a very big bank while this is all going on. Almost 5,000 minerals, 1,000 gas. Continuing on his upgrades, getting up to 3-2. Byon is as well, to be fair. It's not that bad in the upgrade department, but the bank is really troublesome. Finally, it looks like Byon feeling confident enough to move out. He's also trying to get this 5th base. Kind of, it's almost sneaky. It really shouldn't be, though. I do think Geralt would do better in a game like this with maybe 1 or 2 more observers. Certainly just place down pylons, actually. The fact that this entire left side was just a freebie for Byon for longer than he even knew seems a little off. The Zealots do finally cut back on the left side. The right side now defended, not just with an army, but also static defense and more disruptors. So the Zealots are like, all right, peace out. We're going to try and do something else. And that is better late than never. And in this case, it's actually still just as good. Did they kill a command center? Jesus. All right. Well, Byon was too focused trying to defend and attack at the same time, I guess, to lift that and save it. But he does have extra command centers. That is where some of his would-be bank went into. Now he's starting to really accumulate his own bank as there haven't been too many scuffles. And he's not building excess command centers, but this is still mostly a game for Geralt to lose, I would say. Even though Byon was able to get this base, that's great. Geralt is the one that's still expanding more. And let's see, on the resource trade, he is actually kind of losing. That is a good sign, but he's only kind of losing it by 2,000, 3,000 resources. It's not that impressive. At the end of the day, the Terran is looking for that much better fight to then steamroll over 1 or even 2 bases so that they can't replenish fast enough. That's the dance going on here. We saw Byon's supply initially look quite good, but then the Warpin came in. Geralt just used 13 gateways to reinforce. And Byon is now on the retreats, going back into his natural base. Planetary is not helping. SimCity is a little helpful, I suppose. You just don't want to, as Geralt, I guess, run into a situation where they do have excess units coming in from all different sides. But good concave there from Byon too is also something that Geralt has to be afraid of. But he can reinforce so much. 13 zealots at a time, triple robo production. And he has this safeguard, he has this fallback of the shield batteries and the cannons should he ever take a really bad fight. And it's actually a better fight. Now they're only 1,000 resource difference. Byon scans the top right and probably just shakes his head like, God damn it. It's going to be difficult to take care of that. That is closer to this army. That is, the army goes this way, and this army goes through and kills the planetary lickety-split, and maybe not even that. Maybe it actually just bypasses the planetary and sends 20 zealots into the natural and main base, and the third. Like, it's just moving your entire army all the way to the top right sounds like a bad idea. Sounds like a bad time. Moving it all to the bottom left, or at least some of it to the bottom left, is a bit easier. Because again, Geralt doesn't have any vision here. Doesn't have any vision, doesn't have any units, and his main army is much farther away. And I think this is just the one weakness from Geralt right now. I mean, he has had most of the leeway here in this game. I feel like he could have produced an extra observer. And even if that doesn't mean that he can stop the attack on this corner base, because he just doesn't have enough units, it means that he at least knows about it and can maybe then attack into his opponent like so, or send zealots in to harass as the army is out of place. I mean, it does seem like there's something that's missing. The one little thing, because otherwise, I don't know exactly what else Geralt would do in the situation. I don't think you would go into Stargates to try and end the game here. I think you do just kind of have to play this out and chip away at the Terran. Because as soon as you think you're winning, as soon as you're like, I got like 10,000 minerals in the bank, I got all these bases, I got all this production, that's when the Terran takes a really good fight, and your reinforcements don't cover the supply gap. And, well, this... and then that's when you suddenly lose a game that you really should never have. So, like, totally understand that. Unfortunately, Byon did try and go after that corner base as I was speaking, and did get consequences. That was not pretty. Geralt now up in supply, still has some units on the backside. Colossus even popping out this perfect time to defend this 4th base. If I sound a little exasperated, I guess it's because I am. I don't really know what the Terran is supposed to do in a game like this, if I'm being real with you. I mean, I've seen previous metas where this has happened. One of the first times that Cure really impressed me was actually in a meta that kind of was like this, where you did have more often that Protoss control over the map, and the Terran kind of stuck around 4 bases, but both players, were still max with the high technology. This does look like the game. Yeah, it is game. GG's. And Cure just, like, went off. He had, 3 or 4 different armies under his control that each had, like, a Viking or 2 and a Ghost or 2, and he was controlling all of our armies like a god. It was really cool to see. That still sticks out in my brain. But that was also, like, 6-7 years ago. The meta is so different. The maps are so different. There's so many units that have been changed. Players have gotten universally better. So I don't know if that's really something you can replicate. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of concerning. Byon usually a more fun player to watch, even in troublesome metas for Terran, just because he is willing to just go, like, whatever, man, I'm just going to go 2 base all in, or I'm just going to proxy you, and at least that's a little bit more fun. But I think Byon is probably scratching his head as to what to do exactly. And Clem is probably doing the same thing. Clem did not sign up today. And I don't know if he was particularly busy over the weekend, or he's on vacation, or if he just was like, nah, I don't want to sign up today. And then if it's the third option, why was he just like, I don't want to sign up today? Is it out of a little frustration for what is inevitably going to be a Terran versus Protoss series for him? He certainly has been showing little bits of frustration versus Protoss as Terran, you know, the not GGing. And the choosing to play Protoss versus other Protoss last week. I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, but I feel like there's enough evidence where you could say that a lot of the Terrans are just like, I don't know. And it's frustrating right now. So there is a interesting map that is in this map pool for today. It is a 3-player map. And I do hope we see it in one of these series. Clan was destroying people in the pig tournament. Oh, there you go. So maybe he's just a little tired out of StarCraft. So didn't want to play today. It's not the first time he skipped a weekly, of course. He skipped... I don't know, how many weeklies have there been since ESL started in 2020? If there's been 300, he's probably skipped like 30. He's usually very reliable, but it's not insane not to see him. But other than the 3-player map, I don't know if any of the maps are that different. I mean, they're different. The TLMC maps that are being used for these weeklies are different. You know, there's more U-shaped maps. There's more of the new doodads, like the Zerg rocks. One of the maps I was pointing out had many more entrances into the main base than usual, kind of an older school map. There's another map where the natural wasn't easily walled. But we're not talking extremes here. It's not like we're getting maps where the rush distance is 20 seconds. Which would be insane and probably not viable, but still, it's not that different. So Byon goes on to face Showtime in the bottom bracket. If he is having trouble against Protoss, that ain't gonna let up. He's facing Showtime, and then if he won, he would face Firefly, and if he won that, he might face, like, Strange, maybe? I'm gonna wait for Geralt versus Classic, PvP on the NA server. We also have MaxPax versus Spirit happening. I have to imagine that Spirit is struggling. I don't know if anyone is casting it. Byon's such a nice guy. He asked if I was going to join his match. Okay, TKL is casting MaxPax versus Spirit. I really hope they have a new ladder map pool for EWC. I definitely do not think there will be a patch before EWC. For many reasons, but the biggest one being is that we don't really have people who do balance right now. There was this interesting thing where I feel like I'm being gaslit, but I was pretty sure, maybe you guys know, I was pretty sure that the Balance Council has been disbanded. I was pretty sure about that. That was ESL run. Although, you know, kind of loosely, but still. And there's this guy who has been an idiot before on Reddit, so I assume he's just still being an idiot, but, you know, idiots get things right. Broken clock and all that. Where he just replied to everyone, literally everyone in this Reddit thread that was asking about, like, if there will be a balance patch for EWC. He was replying to literally everyone, being like, well, the Balance Council still exists. And it's like, I don't think that's true. I just don't see why it would still exist. It was being... It communicated to ESL, and then ESL communicated to Blizzard. And ESL no longer is in charge. They're totally hands-off. You know, in any communication that we have with ESL is generally from, like, people who still have, you know, they still want to help StarCraft. But it's not like an official capacity. But then the other thing is that do we really want the Balance Council to continue? I don't. Like, it's not just because of the patch that has been delivered. I am totally sympathetic to the idea that, you know, it's incredibly difficult to balance stuff. You change one thing and there's a totally unintended consequence. Totally get it. No, I don't like it because for the last, like, 3 years, there have been nothing but stories, more than rumors. People who have been in the Balance Council have come out and talked about these things. That it's just incredibly poorly run. It is a group project where the teacher is mostly out of the classroom. She was like, here's a group project, you're all together, figure it out, and then she left. And what happens in a group project then? Loudest person gets the most time to talk and gets the most heard. Also can be the most stubborn person who says, I will not relent on this. People who are naturally just shyer or less confrontational go, okay, you know what, I'm tired. I don't want to argue with you anymore. So I'm just not going to say anything. People's subconscious, you know, I would like to think all the pro gamers didn't just sit there steepling their hands and going like, yes, now's the time. But even subconsciously, they're going to have bias. So they probably need to be, you know, at least a little more organized. And that just never happened. So it sounds like a terrible way to do things. And I also will say, yes, that means that there's really no one doing anything balance-wise. I understand that, but I'm not sure there really is a good solution right now. I'm just pretty sure the Balance Council has been so beaten down, and it's like a failed experiment at this point that it's just not going to work anyway. Anywho, on the top left, we got Geralt. In the bottom left, we got Classic. On the map, Persephone. Let's check this map out. So, it's not that the choke is large. It's that it's a little far away, actually. So there's that. Third base. That's kind of an interesting base there. What's this? Oh, is that a healing zone? That might be a healing zone. I forgot that they included that. No one had used it. Like a healing zone next to rocks that have acceleration zones that lead to a gold base. Corner bases. Destructible rocks. If you break these, they would block this. Are guarding what could be technically a 4th or a 5th. But it's not actually blocking it. Unlike some of the other U-shaped maps, we kind of U-shaped. Maybe the Brood War approach? Well, I think that's just what we'd have to rely on the most. We have confirmation that TLMC, Team Liquid, their TL.net rather, is working with Blizzards. So, like, that's, I think, the only thing we can really even look forward to. But as far as I know, the Balance Council doesn't exist anymore. Wow. Stargate on the way from Classic, who has decided to go for the one gateway expand. This just seems to be more popular than ever. I mean, MaxPax has been doing this for years at this point, and it took everyone else a while to start copying him at all. Then they started to, but just basically against him. If there's a natural ramp, then there was a lot of one-gate expands, sure. But I'm talking specifically the high ground one-gate expand not against MaxPax. Seems to have gotten more popular. So Classic brings that out. Geralt sees it. I mean, the good news is that most of these European Protoss in particular are going to have a lot of experience against this because they do play MaxPax a lot. But it might be a little different than what they were expecting from a Korean Protoss. There's not much for Geralt to do about it, except just get his own 2 units, and then expand, and then go back into unit production. He could have built units non-stop, but since he was already going for a Sentry Stalker, moving out against this would have been maybe futile. Especially because Classic did go for the very safe path and did get a shield battery. Now, Classic does not know what his opponent is doing quite yet. He is going to send the Oracle on over and see the Nexus. I mean, he saw the Pylon, which very much screams, I want to get a Nexus. But I guess the last thing he saw was Gateways producing, so that would make him a little nervous. Because he did start up a Void Ray initially, but perhaps the Oracle... Well, I think it's the Oracle moved and the hallucination revealed itself. So maybe that was even just the Sentry being produced right there. Yeah, so once you see those two things, there's no move out, and there's a Sentry clearly on the field early on. I mean, you're not very scared of being attacked. Certainly not all in. In Classic, they change it over into just a double Oracle opener. Geralt actually gets the advantage on the worker count. Looks like he was just a little more confident in his probe production. He has used his chronos, looks like, primarily on the Nexus as well. Whereas Classic might have spent 1 or 2 on the Oracles instead. That could be the discrepancy here. I mean, the 4-worker discrepancy after you kill 4 workers? Yeah, there had to be something there. The Classic had to have even stopped producing workers. And maybe that's also something that happened while they were both building a Nexus. One person oversaturated, the other did not. Wow. But yeah, the point still stands. Geralt's still ahead by 4 workers. That's pretty good. The Oracles will continue to be a good tool. I'm sorry, one died. So Oracle will continue being a good tool. Blink is on the way for both players around the same time, and this does tend to happen. That's not surprising. What is surprising, though, is just Geralt having that worker lead. Now about more like 5 at this point. Eventually... Well, no. I was going to say eventually you both get maxed out in 2-base saturation. There's a little bit of a... oh, shit. Good force fields. Oh, my God. Geralt is just killing it today. I mean, I know I was kind of talking about the grand scheme of TVP, and maybe that made it sound like Geralt only won because he's in a Protoss meta right now, but he's clearly on point. His micro is good. His confidence looks really good. Again, going back to the worker count. Holy shit, that's a good stasis trap. The worker count, and then the move out there with the good force fields. Really nicely done. But Geralt was getting a 3rd Nexus behind this. So, back to my original point. He doesn't have to stop producing probes. He could, and then he could fit some technology or more gateways or more warp-ins if he wanted to attack. He could stop building probes. But he isn't. So he's, a lot oversaturated. 8 there. Now get transferred on over. Denies 1 more pathway. Sure, why not? And his 3rd Nexus is, 30 seconds ahead of Classic, because Classic was under pressure. Classic got the stasis trap, and that was a great stasis trap. But he's now behind by 7 workers. Same number of Stalkers, but Geralt has 2 Sentries and a shield battery. So there's no way that Classic can find a lot of damage here. Good use of the Oracle to get in the high grounds. There is a little bit of Artosis Pylon. But, Classic is also losing his Stalkers, so delay on a couple of warp-ins, not the biggest of deals there. Does get a recall out, and the Oracle is still alive. The shield battery nicely covers the probes, so no additional ones killed. Classic's 3rd finally finishing up. He finds himself behind by about 8 workers. This has all been very consistent. That must be the stasis trap, though. I think this would have been... more like right up here, and then it's now going up, but that's the stasis trap. So that's good. But it's not good enough. Are we so far ahead in Geralt's position that we just win based off all these things I keep pointing out? I don't think so. But I feel like you got a really good chance to win. If the rest of the game looks as clean as the game so far for Geralt, then yeah, I believe that he wins. And Classic's job is to try and kind of mess that up. So even a couple of Adepts coming in, scouting the 4th base intention. That might make Classic go like, okay, now I need to also make sure I catch up on the 4th base. Or it might make him go, no, the hell with the 4th base, let's just go for an attack. But his Robo is not quite done, so if he was going to attack, he would not have a Warp Prism soon. And while the rush distance between your 3rd and Geralt's 4th isn't so bad, I mean, it's less than ideal. Geralt's Stalkers are trapped a little bit here. That's unfortunate. He is going to be able to trade out at least a couple of them, but then he loses the 1-shot. Nice little poke there. He's still going to get, blinked on and lose 2 more. So that was a little deadly. 14 Stalkers to 13, though. Still not that bad. Charge Lot's not getting warped in. Classic very much deciding to go for more Stalkers there, because I believe he did have Charge Finish. Yes, he did. But he just warped in a round of Stalkers. Oh! Oh! That's how you do it. I think Classic is well aware that he is behind. That 4th Nexus timing certainly screamed that, as there wasn't a lot else that was given up to get that 4th Nexus. You know, it was just that the girl was ahead and rolling on forward. So Classic gets a hidden base at the gold on a fresh map, too. When a map's been in a map pool for 4 months, there's a pretty high, there's a higher chance that they'll go, okay, this is weird. Why does it look weird? Oh, because the guy took the gold base, of course. But on a brand new map, there's a good chance that Geralt does not check, but maybe he won't need to. He is coming in for the kill, both of them on +1. Charge Lot's actually getting on top of the Stalkers. Most importantly, Classic went Stalker heavy. He wanted to be able to micro indefinitely, but already backed into his 4th base corner. 3rd base, sorry. Again, he's so far behind. That was not how he wanted to start things off. Stalkers are dead. Warp Prism's dead. No Charge Lots reinforcing. And Geralt with a commanding PvP. I feel like we just saw Chad Geralt or something, you know? Someone get the meme. Someone get this really muscled guy with the big chin and the dweeb. Someone get that and then put Geralt's face on both of them, okay? MaxPax to defeat Spirit 2-0, by the way. I caught the end of game 1 because it was just Stalkers winning pretty quickly. Don't know what happened in game 2. One moment while I open Photoshop. Thanks, man. We got Tokamak for game 2. In the top right, it is Geralt, and on the bottom left, it is Classic. Classic didn't do, I feel like, anything inherently wrong. Nothing that you looked at and scoffed and went, well, this guy clearly read this wrong, or, oh, we got supply blocked for a full pylon, or he never used his oracles, he just kept them at home the entire time. There wasn't anything incredibly wrong, but there was more hesitation because of the way Classic opened. And maybe that's something that he's still working on with that particular opener. I'm pretty sure that most Protoss players have been practicing that 1-gate, high ground 1-gate expands for a while yet, actually. It's not totally new, but it definitely is more common, let's say, like a year ago. Again, particularly versus the non-MaxPax Protosses. We're seeing a lot more 1-gate expands. But that might still be less of a familiar playstyle, because the stereotype is a stereotype for a reason when it comes to Koreans, kind of anything actually, is that they're more aggressive. And Korean Protoss, Korean PvP, I definitely still think of mostly 1-base versus 1-base scenarios. If not that, if they both do a gentleman's agreement and get to like 3 bases, it's still something like like attack timing. But that has changed, and Geralt might be right, or sorry, Classic might be right to change along with everything, the meta and StarCraft evolution, but he still might be a little more uncomfortable being not in the driver's seat. Is that really the build that makes you uncomfortable? Although he does do something really cute here. Huh, okay. It's just the style of play might make you uncomfortable. The one that is having to play defensive and react to the opponent to a certain extent. But this is really clever here. So Geralt, first of all, he's gone for 2 gateways. Geralt is not going to give up on what he likes. But what Geralt is doing here, he scouts the 1 gate, and he assumes, actually, because he didn't even scout the Simon X core timing. He says, I think you're going to go for a Nexus again. And I hated that. No, don't show it. Yeah, exactly. It's almost completely unlikely this actually happened this way. That probe is supposed to go into the main and at least see the Simon X core timing. If not just the second gateway as well, right? Instead, Geralt says, you're going to take a Nexus, and I'm going to make sure you do not get a Nexus. You do not get a Nexus. He now knows. He sees 4 Stalkers in total. But that's still pretty important. That's still surprising. Geralt not even trying to go into the main base, just hardcore looking to deny the Nexus as long as possible. Could be in a little bit of trouble, because maybe if he had known that that was a 2-gate opener, he would have gone for a shield battery perhaps a little bit faster. You know, seeing as it is also 4 Stalkers that really can be aggressive. It's not a sentry opener that just would have led to probably a scout in that Nexus, but it's not an all-in from Classic. He's not doing anything particularly aggressive, but that little timing could have hurt more. If Geralt had not sent his probe back in, he would have no idea 4 Stalkers were on the field. He might have skipped that shield battery. And that would have been... And then his Stalkers, his 2 Stalkers at that time would have just been out in the front. And they would have been target fired. It could have been bad. As it is. It's just a little interesting. Just a little more to talk about in the early game PvP. Because it is going into a normal PvP. Classic does have an army supply lead, but to actually break through the shield battery and any defender's advantage is a little complicated. Geralt does have his Oracle as his difference. That could be a very big difference. Classic did not get to scout it. No, he did not. It does not get a lot of damage, though, despite being a surprise. Classic is warping in a decent amount of units. He's got Adepts harassing, as does Geralt. Geralt also warped in a couple of Adepts, but... Chronoing his Blink as well. Geralt would have a little bit of a lead. He's also taking some probe damage or some mineral harassment, I suppose. 3 probes killed on the side of Classic means that Geralt ends up about 2 workers ahead. He is pretty behind on that Blink, though. Classic perhaps superpowering that Blink to make sure that the 3rd base was too difficult for Geralt to grab quickly. That is how Geralt was playing the last game. He really got a seamless flow of Nexus. In this game, it should be a little weirder than that. Well, Classic has the faster Blink, though. Geralt will have the faster additional gateways. So Geralt, you know, he can fit in the Nexus, as you can see here, and it's actually very important that it looks like he's going to go for the not triangle Nexus. So Classic's... In a funny way, Classic is going to... Oh, a Dark Shrine's on the way. Okay. So Classic, you know, maybe this is the 3rd Nexus. He actually just stays around the 3rd Nexus, and he tries to get the cancel. The Stalkers might not be there in time, because it's just a brand new Nexus. But this actually isn't going to be where the Nexus is. And it also isn't going to be all about the macro. Classic, he got into the main, and I was going to say it's kind of funny, because he might scout these 2 gateways coming down faster anyway, but he didn't. He was forced to withdraw. So he doesn't know that Geralt already has 4 gateways worth of production. Geralt's 3rd base is on the way too, so it's not like it's extremely dedicated. That is something that Classic was able to scout at the very least. But he also definitely doesn't know about the Dark Shrine. The Robo is about halfway done, and there's no proxy pylon. No, there is. Oh, no. Geralt's not even, I feel like, really hoping to get this battle won. I think he's just trying to distract. One DT being warped in as I'm speaking. The robo is done. It's on the front lines. It is not producing an observer. Geralt was able to see that that was a robo. He should have been able to click on it. He is building an observer, but this DT is just going to go right to that third base and find the damage there. There was no attempt to try and get more than one DT into more than one base, which that timing might not have worked out. The observer would have been just perfectly timed, but the third base was open. 2 probes is all he got, though, before retreating. Wants that Archon more than he wants further probe damage. Classic has also proxied a pylon, but for less nefarious things. Geralt still on a higher gateway count. Is going to be up by 2. Both of them keeping at a very similar worker count. No one really being significantly greedy, and that might be what Geralt was hoping for. He might have hoped that Classic tried to grab even a 4th base. The Classic does not know about this attack. Geralt, ditto, doesn't know about the harassment about to enter into his natural and third base. It's going to be some pretty significant economic losses for Geralt, but can Geralt win the game with this push? He's up by 15 army. No shield battery here. Pylon going to be depowered. No warp-ins. Warp Prism also in trouble. Shield battery, or the sentries, excuse me, also in trouble. Forced to panic hallucinate. We do have an Oracle for Revelation. Obviously, Geralt knows those are fake Archons, but his AI does not. And it looks like he is not really bothered by them. The AIs, yeah, waste a couple of shots on it, but it is only a couple. Zealots get back on the Stalkers. Is that going to be good enough? The Stalkers do get some breathing room, some room to micro back. Geralt, though, finds the Nexus completely. Well, if you can't win the game, getting a Nexus is pretty damn good. I think Geralt has done it. Classic has this upgrade advantage, but it's not going to conquer the significant army surplus that Geralt had, and that is it. Geralt 2-0's Classic. And he looks really good doing it. The first game was almost perfect, aside from that stasis trap. Second game was certainly closer, harder to read exactly who was going to win. I think if Classic had any idea that an army was building so close to his base, he would have had a chance to defend. If he had scouted for the proxy pylon for the DT that arrived, and he saw a gateway and army, he would have been like, ah, shit, and he would have moved his army to protect that pylon, built a shield battery that hopefully would have been done in time, had sentries with full energy behind the army, and those are already significant differences, because the army battle started, I think, with something like a 10 supply difference, right? Defender's advantage absolutely makes up for that. But no, he doesn't realize it. It's the amount gathered per minute, yes. Hello, hello. So Geralt versus MaxPax is going to be coming up. Which means I gotta go over to the European server. Post on your Discord. Oh my god. The Chad, Gerald. It's so good. His mustache really makes it perfect, too. There it is. I wanted to open it in browser. Look at it. That's just his body, actually. You guys don't even know how ripped he is. The Chad Polish Protoss. Showtime defeated Byon. Shameless defeated Strange and then defeated Young Yakov. So Classic is facing Shameless. There's still a chance that MaxPax wins the entire tournament, so I'm not going to call a new winner yet, but there is a better chance of there being a new winner. I know, isn't Apollo a cutie patootie? Apollo. Yeah, he got his ear to move. Apollo. You're so cute. You're so cute. I love you. You're so cute. He looks bored, but he loves it. He loves it. He's wondering if I'm gonna let him on my lap. I know my cat. Oh, I did finally update that command. I just don't have an emote for her. You guys don't even see Nugget. You guys don't even... You've never seen Nugget. Apollo's one of the more common cats, yeah. And see, there's 4 cats that come downstairs, and there are 2 cats that don't. So. And then 3 of those cats have sleeping space in the camera. And one of the cats sleeps somewhere else. Wicket sleeps on this tower that I don't have a camera pointing to. She's there right now. But, yeah, Nugget and Nixie don't come downstairs. Not anymore, anyways. Nixie used to live down here. She was too stressed. And if anyone was doing on-stream math, yes, that was 6 cats in total. We're in a lobby. Just me and Indy as the commentators, apparently. Everyone else is checking out the lower bracket, perhaps tired of PvP. I don't think I'm really tired of PvP, thankfully, because it is a lot of Protoss, isn't it? But I think PvP is still fun enough to watch. Almost like a D&D party. Yeah. That's what I do when I stop streaming. I bring out the DM book and have my cat sit in a circle. All right, best of 3 for the winners bracket finals. So not the finals. We got in the top right MaxPax, and in the bottom left Geralt. Geralt, he's a Super Saiyan right now, man. I don't know if he wins against MaxPax, especially in the same fashion he won against Classic. I'll say he's Super Saiyan. Right now, maybe he's just like a ascended Gohan or something. Or whatever he was before he was Super Saiyan. Oh, that was Super Saiyan 2, actually. Sorry. Okay, well, he's Dragon Ball Z. I need to rewatch so that I can continue making analogies with it. And similes. He's KO canning right now. There you go. He's looking very, very, very good. I mean, he dominated Byon. And he dominated Classic. One matchup is a little troublesome. The other matchup is fair is fair. It's a mirror matchup. You can't, Sorry, Classic. You have the same tools that he does. And Geralt just looked super confident. Everything he did seemed on point. In the first game, he maxed out macro-wise because he felt like he could. He did everything that he should have to ensure that victory lead. That lead into victory. And then for game 2, it was a little more complicated than that. There were more what-ifs and kind of cleverness from Classic as well. But even then, MaxPax Geralt may end up making all the right moves. MaxPax is the base we're currently looking at, and Geralt is once again intent on not letting any Nexus come down. So what usually happens, to further expand on what the Classic thing was, this Nexus timing is always a little trickier because the probe wants to scout for any trickery behind a one gateway, because sometimes there is a second gateway, as we saw in the last series. Sometimes there's faster technology that may not be the technology you're expecting, which is usually Stargate, but maybe it's not, right? So you do usually want to try and get a scout. You're also scouting for that chrono or not. And if your probe gets into the main and then there's a probe somewhere you didn't see that was waiting for that probe to move out of the way, and you do not chrono your probe, so you have that minerals to actually produce the Nexus, then the Nexus gets down and you're like, well, shit, I shouldn't have looked into the main base. I'm a dummy. So that's the weird minigame that happens in PvP, and one that Geralt is just refusing to make a minigame. He's like, no, I'm going to make sure this Nexus doesn't get down. His probe did eventually leave, to be fair, but that was also because a unit had to be produced. And this is also something that you want to force the guy to do. So even if they do get a Nexus, I mean, hopefully they still got the Zealot that is mostly useless as the game goes on. Especially if it's going to try and counter versus someone who did go 2 gateways. If Geralt was also going 1 Nexus, can't damn it. My brain's not working today. If he's also going 1 gateway, then the Zealot might be able to do something, but double the production here for Geralt. The Zealot is going to pair up with an Adept, a Stalker, and an Oracle. And it's going to try and find Geralt not producing army, as Geralt tries to not just catch up, but even beat MaxPax's economy and technology. So you see that Geralt just knew this was on the way. Geralt had limited resources, and he knew that. This is very intentional. He could have maybe delayed Blink to grab 2 more units, sure, but he didn't want to, so he put 2 shield batteries down, hoping that he would then be able to divide his army perfectly, so that the Oracle didn't find damage, and the army on the front lines didn't find damage. And he was very close to doing it perfectly. He did lose a sentry, though, and that, that's a lot of gas. But keeping the probes alive, even though they've been delayed in mining, keeping the other units alive, stopping the Oracle from getting these cheeky 6 probes in the main, it is harder than it looks. Every Protoss who faces MaxPax kind of expect this. Very few end up deflecting everything. And Geralt is just so on top of this. Holy shit. From the beginning of him tracking those Oracle, he targeted the correct Oracle. Maybe my brain doesn't work right because I constantly think of Geralt just not doing something perfectly. And then he does it, and I'm like, but that was perfect. Even these hallucinated stalkers and the natural is such a cool little touch. Like, we've seen so many... He's not going to get this Oracle, is he? God, he's so close. We've seen so many people track the Oracle movement, and then, because they're just happy they found the Oracles, that they don't even shoot the one that was injured. And Geralt just made sure to shoot the one that was injured. So we actually got the kill. And then forcing the recall of the second Oracle is just really good. Now, I am gushing over Geralt right now on his defense, but you do have to talk about MaxPax. MaxPax's offense might not be going the way that he hopes, but he's scouting. He is scouting. He is macroing. His Blink not that much farther off from Geralt's, and he is grabbing a 3rd base. So it's not like Geralt's getting so far ahead by looking really good. It's just that he's not falling into the same pitfalls that most Protosses do versus MaxPax. At least not yet. Now, this is a lot of stalkers here for MaxPax. Geralt is a little shy and also a little more injured by the looks of things, but still, you have the Phantom's advantage to consider. MaxPax does need to respect that. He doesn't know if 4 more stalkers have already been warped in, and of course, there are shield batteries that Geralt could fall back to if he needed to. Robo actually was produced already. I kind of missed that on the production tab, but that is important to note. One observer already being available for the Oracle Stasis Trap shenanigans is quite nice. And the Revelation, I suppose, is not available. It is now. That Observer might be dead. Okay, no. Yes, no. Yes. MaxPax not looking for the Observer. Okay. But yeah, now you don't have to worry about the stasis trap. So maybe you feel a little more confident chasing after this army, to a certain degree anyway. The Immortal is also available. Obviously a critical thing you can get from the Robo. Hello, Immortal, please shoot. And that will help overcome the Stalker difference, which is actually now favorable to Geralt, but he has to leave Stalkers in the main for what he knew was going to be an Oracle run by. And it was. Oracle did not get any chance in the main, so it comes back on the front, but the stasis trap is being detected currently. This Observer is just chilling. And that feels like it's actually taking away so much power from MaxPax in this very specific way. It's just, again, go back to previous weeklies and think of MaxPax versus all the Protoss he plays against. They've lost more probes versus those Oracles. 2 Oracles are still alive because they weren't killed when they were tracked. The Stalker push catches Geralt a little more off guard and actually gets, you know, a natural attack of some type because Geralt has to pull back to his shield battery. What else? This is even good use of the terrain. The Observer isn't produced, so MaxPax literally just waves his hand in front of your face like an annoying brother as he continues to push into you. And none of these things technically end the game in these other PvPs, but they do instill the sense of confidence in MaxPax winning, don't they? You see all these things add up for MaxPax, and you go, well, yeah, of course you won. He was on everything. And it's just not happening versus Geralt. Geralt is deflecting almost everything MaxPax is throwing at him. He's already prepared for this little Zealot run by, well, because of the Observer, of course, but still, the Observer is so good. And it was a very conscious decision to get that Robo. Possibly for that part of MaxPax's pacing. Like, this is what MaxPax does in almost every PvP ever. Was there a chance that MaxPax also goes for a quick DT? You know, a 3 base but not saturated DT? Sure, okay, and that Robo would cover that too. But it covers both in this case. MaxPax gets a War Prism into the main base. This is Geralt maybe a little underdefended, or maybe that was a mistake. Okay, maybe that was a mistake. He did not mean to send into the main base. But that does give Geralt time to respond. He's going to move his army. A very powerful army at that. Very similar in size. Just the Immortal really still packing a punch. There's not that many Zealots here from MaxPax. They've only just now been warped in. And Geralt now taking a astounding lead. Also killing the 4th base of his opponent. At the same time that he deflects MaxPax's push, he gets his own War Prism harassment. Gets a cancel, not a kill, so that is important. Nonetheless, still impressive. And now Geralt using the space that this War Prism has created to go across the map, catch MaxPax's army in a very awkward position. Aggressive blink on top. MaxPax with no shield battery. But he does have a War Prism of his own, heading into the main base. That Observer is available, though, so the DTs that were eventually made still do not cause a problem. Geralt does pull back, though. Not extremely confident in his ability to continue the attack. He only has 1 Observer, and that Observer was being used for defense. So, worst case scenario, MaxPax could have warped in defensive DTs. He actually didn't, but you always have to consider that, right? So Geralt puts his hands up in his air. It's like, okay, fine, you got me there, but I still didn't take that much damage from you. I'm still playing a very playable game. This 5th base is not going to happen for Geralt, but it was relatively new. And if he can win this fight, then he will be able to place that back down. And he could win this fight. Zealots getting on top of MaxPax's Stalkers. 2 Observers are available for MaxPax. He sees no Observer of his opponent. He's going to go for the Stasis Trap. Give him at least an attempt to retreat. But good eyes from Geralt. He did just blink 1 Stalker in. Now is he going to do it again on this Stasis Trap? He did not see that one forming. But he might be aware of the possibility. MaxPax goes in with the War Prism that he had recalled and then shift-queued around the map again. Into the 4th base of Geralt. There is a cannon, however, so that's not totally undefended. Geralt also with his War Prism still going strong. It did survive earlier on. Try to send Zealots in. Stasis Trap did help out, and now that's not really going to be a possible attack point. Geralt is a little disheveled perhaps on the defense. Same Immortal count at this point too. MaxPax also with 4 DTs. Is that just all in the War Prism? That is all in the War Prism that is currently being denied. His own Immortal actually left on the front lines. He was forced to retreat, blink back. Stasis Trap still available. This time that, Geralt did see it. He knows about it. But his Observer did die. Both players with Dark Shrines, by the way. So the lack of detection on the offense or the defense could be huge in this game. Geralt has started to lose that a lot in supply, though. Seems like in the blink of an eye, he went from being same to being now way far behind. MaxPax's 4th base was delayed, but only once, so he got that up and running, and then he got a 5th base really quickly after that. MaxPax not missing a beat. Geralt did such an admirable job deflecting most of what MaxPax trips people up with, but might not have been good enough. His own natural now in a little bit of trouble. Observer is tracking, however, and it looks like MaxPax did not bring an Observer with his army, so this is a little problematic. Geralt's not totally dead yet, but it is looking kind of grim. He needs his 5th base, but no longer protected by those destructible rocks. +3 attack, also way faster for MaxPax. I mean, what does Geralt have? He does keep finding his opponent's immortals, but Zealot's now on top of his own immortals, kind of trades that out. Good Zealot weapon from Geralt. He also is still trying to get that counterattack or run-by done, but MaxPax, you know, he had run home with his own run-by army, so he did have defense there. And MaxPax is up to 6 bases, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Geralt's only at 5. Archons are coming in for Geralt, but maybe a little bit too late. +3 attack is now done for MaxPax. Still a ways to go for Geralt. He really can't give up this location now either. So while the gold base is helping him on the lesser probe count that he has, it's still... That would be really good if his army was bigger. That'd be amazing if his army was bigger. They're both maxed out. But they are not. MaxPax might have almost 100 probes, but he still also has a bigger army and better upgrades. This might be the last stand here for Geralt, who played one of the better games versus MaxPax's first 7 or 8 minutes. And then MaxPax still just came out ahead. It's almost frustrating. You know, technically not the best fight that MaxPax could take, but I think he feels pretty good about this game. No defensive observer? No defensive observer. Okay, well, that's how this game is truly going to end, but it would have ended one way or another. MaxPax is too rich. Geralt is forced to tap out. GG's. Damn. Geralt played so well. Geralt played, I feel, better than a lot of other Protosses I've cast versus MaxPax. You know, there's games where MaxPax faces a Protoss who catches him off guard, and then it's not a very clean game from him. Like, he doesn't win literally every single PvP. But when I think of PvPs versus MaxPax, where both players get to 3 bases, let's get to 2 bases, really, and nothing else happens. So MaxPax does his 3-unit attack with the Oracle as the second attack. And then he does get his blink done and then does start to control his opponent's side of the map with blink stalkers and stasis traps. When those games happen, the other best Protosses in the world, they tend to mess up somewhere. Not in a game-breaking way, because again, he doesn't literally win all of his PvPs, but they tend to mess up somewhere. And Geralt just basically didn't. Not for the first 7 minutes. And when it looked like he had really capitalized on his defense, when he started his own attack across the map, I was full of confidence for the guy. But the DTs, even though they didn't do direct damage, they clearly did the perfect amount of indirect damage. They forced Geralt to retreat. They forced Geralt to play still the defensive game, which he had mostly been playing just really, really well, but it still did give MaxPax some control over the entire game. So when MaxPax was able to get back on the front line, pressure Geralt, he also expanded. He got that 4th base, he got the 5th base. And all of it behind almost non-stop aggression, non-stop battles, non-stop run-bys, non-stop Warp Prism usage. by both players. And they both seem to be deflecting each other's harassment and aggression fine. But then he just blinked and suddenly there was a 30-40 supply gap. Crazy how good these guys are. In the bottom right, you got MaxPax. In the top left, it is Geralt. See if Geralt can improve on that game. I mean, I was very impressed by it. I would say he beats most other Protoss, and that's already what he's done today in this Open Cup. But I suppose MaxPax is still the final boss. He's definitely not the kid he used to be, where he would do his little one base expand that kind of confused and bewildered people 5 years ago, and then lose in a macro game because he simply wasn't as good in the long term. We're a long way from that. MaxPax, if he shows up at any offline event, I mean, his first couple offline events would probably be not great, just with the pressure and the stress and the different situations. Literally how different you have to, deal with their tables and their chairs and whatever else. Maybe it wouldn't be too good. But let's say that he did make a reoccurring appearance offline. I mean, I think he would be winning those tournaments. Certainly getting farther than any other Protoss in those tournaments. And he would be making all the people who say, well, he doesn't play an offline, so he can't be the best. He'd make him shut up. And I still say that. I'm one of those people who is prepared to shut up. But as of right now, he does not participate in offline tournaments. And that is the only thing that is stopping people from saying he is the best. Geralt, determined to be annoying, blocks out his opponent. Is that a full wall? No. Yes? No. There's no way that could be a full wall. That'd be very odd for MaxPax to do. Yeah, okay. The Nexus was blocked, but do keep in mind that by putting down those pylons, even with the cancels, Geralt is delaying his own Nexus to a certain degree. I mean, you wouldn't expect to get literally as fast of a Nexus as an opponent who is one gate expanding, but 2 gate expand into the Nexus after the pylon blocks. So, what? 20-second difference, not too bad. Geralt was still able to get ahead of Classic in their best of 3 because Geralt just seemed to have continually produced probes confidently. Classic did not. MaxPax, he's better. He is better than Classic at the 1 gate expand, certainly. If not in general, and didn't seem to have that same problem. Looks like Geralt, while he did a fantastic job against MaxPax, truly, is not willing to play that same game. Geralt is proxying a gateway. No technology in the main, though, has been scouted. The Oracle scouted and said, okay, maybe it's not down yet. You could go back in and say, okay, well, why isn't it down yet? This is odd. It should know. Especially with this guy. I think even the first scout he would have known. And the second scout, for sure, he knows that there is something missing. And it's either additional gateway somewhere or it is hidden technology. But it's very clearly that gateway at this point. Holy shit, 10 probes have died back at home. Just went through the shield battery and Geralt did not notice in time to recharge it. So 11 probes went down. And his attack on the front wasn't looking all that great anyway. He does get a stalker, but he's lost 2 of his own, and a third one is very close to death. Void Ray is almost out. MaxPax, I mean, he had a shield battery from the get-go, but when his Oracle saw no technology, he got the second one. And I think that's just about good enough with the Void Ray on the way, of course. We'll see. We'll see. Void Ray is definitely necessary. And if Geralt had not lost 11 probes, would he have had enough? He is still capable of warping in 3 stalkers at a time, so I don't know if that changed anything. It just ensured that Geralt had to win with this. Void Ray will go down, and that is nice, but you still are only at 20 probes, so MaxPax could throw away 20 of his own and still be in an okay position. Yep. Damn. This MaxPax guy. It's unfair. It's illegal. GG's. MaxPax 2 zeros ends the Chad Geralt. And we'll await someone in the winners, or in the grand finals. Classic beat Shameless, and now waits for Spirit versus Showtime. So that would definitely be on America. Even though it was a 2-0 and the second game wasn't very hopeful, that first game was still... I still am very impressed. Geralt's playing really well. Spirit defeated Showtime. So now it goes to face Classic. I'm gonna BRB. Magic. Get some cat ASMR. Hi, Zig. Give these cats one treat, and then they think whenever you're on stream, you're gonna give them more. I am definitely his favorite human. This is not a lie. This is provable fact. He's a scaredy cat, so even though my dad has done nothing to him in his life. In fact, no human has ever done anything to him. He has lived a golden life. He still is a scaredy cat. He will run away. The only time he's courageous is when there's food around. And then everyone is his favorite. But I'm the only one that can pet him, and he'll expose his belly, and he loves belly rubs. And Apollo is his favorite cat. Him and Apollo are like brothers. It's very cute. Yeah, what kind of cat treats are all those MaxPaxes and Clems? And I should keep saying these things. And Ziggy's excited. He starts just rubbing up against literally everything. Meaning he causes a big old mess. Moin, 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 moin. It's taken a while because no one was coin flipping. I wonder if TKL is actually going to find a euro to flip instead of just Googling coin flip. His little hook tail gets hooked on the mic all the time. What happened to Rainer? He's living in Korea. He plays a lot of League of Legends. He streams it. But he did participate in the GSL qualifiers. And he did make it into GSL. So I cast that on Saturday and uploading the VODs, I guess, after this cast. You guys can't hear it, but I can hear it through my headphones. Apollo is snoring. All right, finally a game. Tokamak. All right, this is a best of one, actually. This is the lower bracket of the Monday Night Weekly. So on the top right, it is Spirit. Bottom left, it is Classic. The winner will face... You know, when I missed being a part of a finals, they didn't all leave from me. Did they? But it's fine. It's fine. I guess they just like Steadfast more. Never forget, never forgive. Hello, Gravy Dave. It's a best of one because we were in the lower brackets. In the top right, it is Spirit. In the bottom left, it is Classic. On the TLMC map, Tokamak. And yeah, it's a best of one. So that's would usually be very dangerous. It is very dangerous. But this matchup, well, it obviously has cheese. Protoss can cheese. Terran can cheese. Spirit, a little less cheesy, though. I'm going to guess that we're going to get a bit of a macro game, and we won't have that much of an upset either way. Because I don't think one person here is heavily favored above the other, actually. Usually, I would say Classic is heavily favored, particularly since I have gone on about how Protoss are having a good time right now in this matchup. But Spirit's been playing pretty well. He's defeated some other Protoss on his way here. And I don't think that they play against each other very often. So if I had to guess, Spirit's style, which is a little different from other Terrans, might trip up Classic. And that would be the real Dosh Garnet. Hope that it was a best of 3, because then I would know and I'd remember and I'd figure him out. And instead it's just a best of 1. And oh well. That might help Spirit, but Classic can be a tricky player all of his own, and, well, that might help him. Gets into a macro game, gets to a 3-base scenario. Spirit is one of the best Terran turtlers out there, even though he no longer does that all the time. He still, if he has to, does it very well. I think Classic would win at that point, actually. I'm more thinking of, can Spirit get a 2-base attack that Classic doesn't quite read or prepare for correctly. Maybe not an SCV pull, but just a 2-base move out, couple of tanks, couple of medevacs. That's going to be Spirit's best bet. That's right, I said Dosh Garnet. To make it even more comical. It is a 1-Rax expand with Marine. Very greedy build, actually. But Classic isn't doing a lot of any pressure in the early game. This Adept might have a bit of fun because the bunker was not made. But the bunker is only just to ensure that it doesn't kill, basically, the Marine, if we're being real. Because the SCV would still be in a bit of trouble. Adept will just shade past the bunker. So you will eventually get 3 Marines. And the very ideal scenario is that the SCV finishes the command center, because the Adept, maybe checks the main or something first. That is not going to happen. Oh, a Hellion was produced. So, okay, the Hellion pops out as well. Either way, 3 Marines or the Hellion also. Means that the Adept does have to skedaddle. It's not going to skedaddle, though. It's going to enter into the main base, given the opportunity. It wants to get that full scout, plus maybe even 3 SCVs. No, not quite. 2 SCVs plus a scout, and a little bit of that delay on the command center. So yeah, it's a pretty worthwhile Adept. Thank you, Lothan1, for that 8-month Prime sub. Wall comes down. I I don't know if it's going to stay like this wall. I guess it will stay like this wall. Oh, and a Phoenix is on the way. Oracle was produced first, and then I expected a Twilight Council, but a Phoenix is actually on the way. Are we going to go for more than one Phoenix, or is this going to track the medevac that is on the way? Classic did not technically see the starport, but he saw, no second barracks. I guess it could have been over here. Pretty unlikely, though. The assumption of a 1-1-1 is pretty safe. The Oracle also will confirm that it is the medevac, because it gets a SCV, I believe. Yes, it does. 2 SCVs. 3 SCVs. Can we get a 4th? Not quite. Medevac healing does come into effect there. Twilight Council is finally on the way. So the Phoenix Council, yes, the Phoenix was just to deflect, track, perhaps even help kill the medevac, which it still can do. Spirit might not want to go for the medevac drop anymore. It's not often that Protoss will get just a lone Phoenix after the Oracle opener to deflect the medevac, but it does happen. And not only that, they clearly know it's on the way. What are you really hoping? Oh, God. Whoops-a-daisy. Okay, well, I was going to say, what are you really hoping to get with that medevac? And nothing would be the answer. So Spirit just keeps it with a main push that totally by luck saw the Phoenix, or the Phoenix saw it, I guess, ran over it and died. One Phoenix could have been very helpful. One Phoenix, a little range. Maybe the Liberator can't siege up as far. One of the tanks gets lifted in a crucial moment. That Phoenix could have been useful. Oracle does find 3 more SCVs. Spirit is doing what I was kind of alluding to, and I think this could trip up Classic, but the Oracle is getting so much damage. Unfortunately, sounds like a Liberator tried to harass the probe line. I think this is it for Spirit, because it's not like Classic forgot to make army behind the Oracle damage. Classic, what are you doing? Whoa! I guess he did want to kill that tank, and I guess he did get it, but that was a lot of Stalkers that were killed. I thought he'd take a little bit of a slower approach to this, knowing that time was certainly on his side. Okay, well, that was a really fearsome number of Stalkers. This is far more manageable, but Spirit lost so much economy behind this. I still think Classic wins almost no matter what. Grabs the Liberator, grabs the tank. Second Liberator will have to siege up, because what else is it going to do here? So many Stalkers once again sacrificed for the greater good. Oracle also goes down, but Classic should still win. Even as Spirit says, wow, I'm doing much better than I thought. And so he is trying to replace those SCVs. It's not like Classic didn't get his 3rd Nexus. It's not like Classic entirely stopped producing probes at 42. For God knows what reason. Like, he knows he was in an almost insurmountable lead. So that you could produce the army, you could produce the Nexus. Well, not the Nexus, he was going for the Nexus. But you could produce the army, and he could produce the probes. And so we did both. And while the army losses were greater than I think he anticipated, he still holds on to a significant worker lead. Mules only make up for so much. It looks like Spirit might just 2-base all in from here. I think that is his only choice. Misclick on the rocks very initially. Loses yet another tank. Marines do not outrange Stalkers. Quite the opposite. And now the Marines are also going to go down. If the Oracle hadn't killed all those SCVs, and Classic was as cavalier as he was with the Stalker defense, it'd be a much more interesting game. I would actually wonder if Classic had thrown to a certain degree. But the Oracle did kill that many SCVs, so I'm not worried. Looks like there's still Liberator harassment going down. We have 3 Liberators in total. There was 4 Liberators in total. Or wait. No, there was 3. The one that was trying to leave on the left side did die. And one of them snuck in on the natural, but only killed a handful of probes. Tanks will defend, and Spirit's natural. He didn't stop producing them. Most of the time in this matchup, you would have stopped producing tanks after 3, maybe 4, and it is dependent on the situation. In this situation, he absolutely needed the tanks. Looks like the Liberator did manage to find additional probe kills, but it also died. So all Liberator harassment now officially done. Classic still holding on to an almost 20 worker lead. Getting his 4th base as well. Getting to Colossus. Getting +1. Warp Prism will help with the possible micro of his units, but also just to threaten Spirit. But if Spirit's going to SCV pool, you know, the Warp Prism, it just guarantees that it's really, really, really an all-in, I suppose. Now, the Warp Prism might actually be less important. But it's a situation where it doesn't matter. We are not on a knife's edge here for Classic. He does not have to make sure that everything is perfect. Grabs the reactor, which is not a bad catch at all. Second medevac had looked like it was just only producing. When a reactor dies, guys, and it's producing two things, that second thing that is now in queue is actually still at the progress that it was when the reactor died. Some people don't know that. I made a video about this once, and it was like 7,000 views, and everyone was like, I didn't know that. So if you didn't know, now you know. That is a lot of zealots. I'm surprised the SCVs didn't come. They are coming. They're just a little late. The SCVs were supposed to be on the front there. That would have made this a really, really bad idea by Classic. As it is, it was just a normal bad idea. He is... I don't know, man. Classic feels like he's making this game closer than it should be. I still don't think he loses, but... I mean, what if those SCVs were on the front and he pulled the trigger? Would he still have been as confident? Maybe he does pull back and saves the majority of his zealots, or what? Okay, Spirit is going to tap out. I was never really concerned for Classic. I think anything that happened here that looked a little overconfident was because he was rightfully overconfident. But yeah, that was a little scrappier, I guess, than I thought. Scrappy's not even really the right word, because at no point was Classic playing that scrappy. It's just, it was... There were more mistakes made by Classic than I thought, I suppose. And then they weren't meaningful mistakes. No commentators will be at Dallas. Unless they go of their own accord to be a fan in the crowd. Well, now you guys know that. A blunderous victory? Yeah. Nice. Yeah, sure. That's a better way to put it. And we all know I'm not a fan of StarCraft 2, so I would never be in the crowd. Exactly. Now I'm gonna guess that... They should have some type of production for a mainstream for Dallas for StarCraft 2, but it's all online. And I'm going to guess I'll be hired for it, but I really don't know. I mean, if it turns out that there won't be any mainstream whatsoever, that wouldn't surprise me either, actually. Someone just called me sugar in YouTube chat. You better be a southern elderly woman. Anyway. But in that case, community casting would still be available, and community casting would just make so much more sense business-wise rather than commentators making the trip out. A well-known StarCraft 2 demographic. I know. It's just a high likelihood. We need to stop asking players to choose heads or tails and start assigning it to them. These minutes of delay starting to add up here.
Hello. Hi, Dick. Hi.
He's just yelling at me. No. Are these live games? These are live games. That's why there's these pauses. We're waiting for Geralt to give us an answer. He's alt-tabbed. Or perhaps he was just talking to Classic directly. There is no delay. Nope. Most of the tournaments don't bother with delay now. Hmm. What's that, Ziggy? You want to be picked up? Yeah, you love being picked up. See, he loves it. I'm kidding, of course. He doesn't like it. He tolerates it. It's hard to believe I wasn't picking him up constantly when he was a kitten. You think he'd be used to it? Stinky kitty breath. Tokamak again? I want to see that 3-player map. Geralt's a fan of salsa? Or is he a fan of Sal's season 4? I think Classic got picked up by someone. There was a couple of pickups recently. But I could be wrong. Yeah, he was the one that was picked up by Virtus Pro, actually. Just a couple of weeks ago. In the bottom left, it is Classic. In the top right, it is Geralt, who might not be on a team himself. Apparently, this clan tag is for Salsa the food, because we have a Chihuahua who is in a salsa vat. I don't know exactly what's going on there. Virtus Pro. Virtus Pro, a very big organization. They used to be Russian, I think, but then they had like sold to non-Russian, and then they had moved out of Russia at some point. I don't know. Like a lot of people obviously talk about them in CS and Counter-Strike because they're a very good team in Counter-Strike, and because there are far more Russians and Ukrainians playing in Counter-Strike, and so they end up having far more ethical discussions about ethics, I suppose, and whether or not you should support the team. And then people seem to be pretty quick to point out, like, actually they're not Russian anymore, and whatever. Used to be Russian, but they slowed down as they got older. Oh, humor. But yeah, I think the conclusion is that they're not anymore anyway, and they reside outside of Russia. So, yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't tracked it that much, but that's what I've read. I do peruse the CS Reddits every so often. So Classic, once again, goes for the same exact gateway setup versus Geralt on this map that they did 2 series ago. I'm getting some serious deja vu. Geralt is once again doing his darndest to block the nexus of his opponent. And there's not much that Classic can do about that, but there's also not much that he technically has to do about it. Yes, he could get the nexus literally right now. So there is a tiny block, but it was 2 gateways. It was not 1 gateway. So once again, does Geralt realize that? He certainly realized it eventually the last time this happened, because he saw 4 stalkers. But this time around, his probe has not gone back in to see the total sum of units and be able to do the math. So Geralt technically could be fooled right now. The stalker pressure on the front, however, is going to tell him there are too many units for this to have been a 1 gateway. I don't know the history of every esports team that up until 2 weeks ago was never in StarCraft, or not never, but has not been in StarCraft for 15 years. I know, I am so unprofessional. Do you know the levels of these players? They are more than Grandmaster. They are professional players. Their rank on the ladder is not as important as their, what's the word? Accomplishments in tournaments. And Classic is one of the best Protoss players to have ever played the game, but he did go to military and came back and was not as strong, I suppose. And Geralt has always been more of an up-and-comer in the European scene, but he was pretty reliably like top 16 in Europe. Certainly always top 32. We got hallucination coming in from Geralt, so he sees what Classic is planning. Classic also has plenty of hallucinations. With that many sentries plus the recharge ability, he should be scouting all the damn time. But what he might not be scouting is this. Off in the corner, Geralt has hidden a dark shrine. Classic, he does get a lot of scouting, and there's something that is missing. If you go for the dark shrine, there must be something that you had to give up for it. But in this case, he was still able to afford to get Blink, and a Twilight Console, obviously Twilight Console and a Blink, and then get the Dark Shrine, I think is what happened. So his Blink is also still a little bit faster than Classic's, which would also be kind of normal for, I guess, the situation as it played out. But the Dark Shrine, maybe that would have been him grabbing that 3rd Nexus faster, because he was the one setting kind of the pace for the Nexus expands the last time these two faced. Maybe it could have been those extra gateways that ended up doing versus MaxPax. We do have 1 extra gateway here, but otherwise, it is very difficult to tell. There's little bits that you can see and kind of feel out. Maybe you do see like how many units they've produced that make you kind of go like, well, wait, this is a possibility. I need to be prepared for it. And fortunately, Classic is getting hints. It's like drinking some wine. He's like getting hints of Dark Shrine. So that is good for him, because it's very, very possible that he did not get a robo at the time that he did, if he was more certain there wasn't a Dark Shrine. It is still a robo not in time to have an observer in place, but clearly Classic picked up on what was happening and was watching the DTs, the possible DTs. So he saw the shimmer, force fielded off as natural. The DTs would rather help tear down the 3rd base than go after the sentries, and I think that is the right call. But unfortunately, even with the DTs here just getting free swipes on the opponent's army, Geralt's Blink number was not high enough. And that might have been exactly what tipped Classic off so strongly. So that was not really worth it. That was, not exactly game ending, but that +1, now an entire upgrade behind here for Geralt. Nexus times are pretty similar, and in fact, Geralt even has a probe lead. But he is very far behind on the upgrade. And what's actually more concerning is that Classic does just have so many more stalkers. The army supply difference should be overcome with the shield battery, but only if the shield battery is properly protected. And that one was sniped. Quickly replacing it as he knows that there is some danger here. Classic, though not bringing all of his units at this point in time, left some at home. He was reinforcing, and also perhaps to deal with any DT harassment. If that was the case, he kind of missed it. One DT snuck its way over into the natural, maybe expecting it from the third. So it does grab 4 probes, little lost mining time as well, and gets Classic's army off of Geralt's back. Geralt trying to take advantage of the now mispositioned army to go after something around the third base. There really wasn't the biggest grab, and going after that pylon would not have been worth... In fact, it wasn't worth. He did go after it. It was not worth diving in after it and then now kind of losing that blink advancement. So now if they blink, they catch up to you. +2 is almost done for Classic. If he's got a Warp Prism, he could absolutely go for it. He does have a Warp Prism. He's actually going to go in the main base with a Warp Prism and then perhaps use the attack on the left. But either way, it's kind of dangerous. Geralt, if he defends and his 4th base stays alive, he will be golden. He will have made up, I think, for the earlier problem with the DTs not doing enough damage. But will he? The Warp Prism is not going to go into the main. Does pair up with the main army. We got ourselves a direct attack into the natural of Geralt. He does go around scouting, finds the army, loses some stalkers, but at least now can position his army, but it's just such a poor-looking army. Charge is not done. 1 Archon is not quite enough here, and the shield battery is far away, so it's not helping these battles, which are now kind of dissected into 2 sides. Guardian Shield also available for Classic, but not for Geralt. And it looks like Geralt's PvP run has truly come to an end. Classic is going to get his revenge and a shot at MaxPax in the grand finals of this tournament. Doesn't even grab that Warp Prism. And maybe Geralt doesn't want to tap out, but he should know that he's very far behind. That 4th Nexus, if it stayed hidden, could maybe be a lifeline back. But if Classic were to retreat, you would probably check that 4th at some point. And then go kill it. Yeah, Geralt's just a little frustrated. A little sad, too. He was playing such good PvP. Tried to play the riskier Dark Shrine build. That didn't work. GG. So that's that PvP done. Now we're going to go into a best of 3 PvP into possibly another best of 3. MaxPax vs. Classic. Okay, so we're going to stay on NA. I'm going to take 1 second while they get the vetoes and stuff done. This feels like a really quick weekly. I'm gonna show you my cat. He's much cuter. Apollo's a very patient kitty. He doesn't get distracted when he sleeps. We finally got invited to a lobby. It took a while. He finally moved. And we're finally getting into game. Kind of warm up my observing hands. It is now the grand finals of the Monday Night Weekly 15, I believe. In the bottom left for Psystorm, he is MaxPax. And in the top right for Virtus Pro, actually, he is Classic. Got picked up by Virtus just a couple of weeks ago, actually, and certainly for EWC. Now, no one is in EWC yet except for Clem, who is invited back because he won last year. Everyone else, they got to play Dallas. They got to play the Bulgaria tournament. That's not very easy to pronounce. They got to play in online EWC qualifiers that will eventually be announced in format and broadcast form. We don't have any information on it. Or in GSL. Those are all the ways you can get to EWC. So no one besides Clem is there, but teams nonetheless picking up the potential players who could make it to EWC. The ones who did make it, props last year and the year before that at Gamers 8, would be pretty good pickups. MaxPax, unfortunately, while he would be one of the best pickups skill-wise, there's no guarantee that he'll actually go. So, yeah. It is what it is. But Classic is definitely a good choice, good pickup. I think there's a very strong chance that he will be in EWC, and then he's played very well in these bigger tournaments, just not well enough, I suppose. I don't know what else the way to put it. He has played very well. He has sometimes been the guy leading the Protoss race in terms of versus Terran, versus Zerg. Not so much PvP, but besides MaxPax, I don't think there's a lot of other Protosses really making a lot of waves there. But he's obviously very good at PvP. And so he gets to a decent point, but doesn't get past the round of 8. And again, that was a lot of Protoss' problems for the last couple of years, is not making it past the round of 8, or the round of 4 at the very least. And I think that will change. I think that'll change in all of the tournaments that are now being set up, like GSL, for instance. Does have its 12 players, and we'll start at Season 1 soon. And there are more Protoss players than anyone else, and I think Protoss will do well. So, there's some good news for Virtus, who picks up Classic, is a very strong player, and probably a very strong Protoss meta. Both players going for the one-gate expands. As I was trying to explain in some earlier PvPs, this has become a common response to MaxPax over the years. It used to be that no one wanted to attempt the one-gate except MaxPax, and then people started to copy it, especially on ramp maps, where the natural is a ramp. And now it just happens against MaxPax all the time. You can see that Classic is trying to do basically the same exact thing. Left his units to fight his opponents. It seems like what happened there was Classic got more damage on his Adept, and MaxPax got more damage on his Zealots. Both contributing different things to different things. It's great, I'm a commentator. What I mean to say is that the Zealot having more health might mean that they can stay in one place and fight longer, right? Which is great, but how often does that happen? The Adept having more health might have meant that she would actually kill more probes, but the Phoenix kind of put an end to that for either side anyway. So Phoenix versus Phoenix is on the way. No more ground production is going to be necessary. MaxPax is very far ahead on the second Stargate. I am a self-aware commentator. I will call myself out for being bad at explaining the things about the things. Second Stargate being so much faster is actually very shocking. I don't know what Classic's plan is here, but it is not a typical one. He did save, I suppose, his Adept and then made another Zealot, was it? No, he just kept both of his units alive. So it seems like he's kind of working with that. He's like, I know this would typically lead into Phoenix versus Phoenix, but I maybe don't want to play that game, or I think there is a tiny area. There's a there's a timing where maybe having a ground army would be more effective. Because he's grabbing Warp Gate. He's proxying a gateway. So he's telling MaxPax, hey, I'm doing Phoenix versus Phoenix. You saw how many Phoenix I built. That's a lot of Phoenix, isn't it? And then MaxPax is like, yeah, that was a decent amount of Phoenix. I'm hoping I got faster to my second production of Phoenix than you, but you're probably also doing double Phoenix production. That's just absolutely not true. MaxPax has no idea that his opponent has not exactly swapped off of Phoenix, but has included a ground army instead of going for more Phoenix. Now, if Classic's gamble doesn't work out, he will lose to Mass Phoenix. It is very difficult to defend against the amount of Phoenix MaxPax will have when you haven't been growing your own stalker count with Blink on the way as well, eventually into like Archons too, right? So that is why this is a gamble. He really needs to do significant damage here, or he will lose the Phoenix War, and then he will just have a terrible game from that point on. But I don't feel bad for Classic's chances at all. This is so funny. A probe literally got in. That is how MaxPax scouts what's happening. But you know what? Even though MaxPax got the scout, he thought he could find damage before his opponent attacked. That was not quite correct. He does recall home, and his probes have been pulled to combat the ground army. He is absolutely winning the air army. It's just such a snowball effect right there. And the really minimal number of stalkers that can be added to this opener did not affect the battle the way Classic was hoping by the looks of it. It's not quite over yet, but a stasis trap, even though it is well known, Classic saw it being built, actually puts a real stop on this. He can't do anything about it, and giving up even one stalker is a pretty significant give when you're on a low unit count. That is his only option at this point, is just to give up a stalker if he wanted to continue attacking. But he can't continue attacking, really. Because there's more than one stasis trap now at this point. Oh my god. Yep, that was the problem. Classic did kill a bunch of probes, right? MaxPax had to pull the probes, so this isn't a terrible position. I would say it's still a bad position for Classic, though. Stalkers will eventually be untrapped. And Phoenix is actually traded out for that. MaxPax blocked all of his opponent's usual bases, shall we say, because his probe was over there, and Classic would probably try to attack, and then once it's kind of determined I'm not dead and you're not dead, he would try and expand, and he would be so focused on attacking that he would just hope that a probe would be able to build the Nexus. Well, it can't build it in a safe location. It can build it in an unsafe and very greedy location. Classic takes the gold base or the half gold base. The Classic also loses 6 probes. His blink has only just begun, and while the Phoenix count didn't actually grow that much more, MaxPax was concerned about the growing number of stalkers on his front door, so he started building Immortals and Void Rays. I still wouldn't mind seeing Phoenix being produced. But it is an odd game, isn't it? Arguably, Classic did enough damage, because he also cut the Phoenix count. And MaxPax, he's forced to turtle. You know, this is not an army that's going to leave anytime soon. And we actually have seen a game like this before. Not exactly like this, but we have seen a game. It was on that it looked like Golden Wall, but it wasn't, map. Maybe it was literally Golden Wall, actually. Anyway. El Dorado. Sorry, El Dorado. The new Golden Wall, excuse me. It was on El Dorado, and the Mass Void into Tempest did not end up working. But maybe this game it will? I thought it would look a bit worse for Classic. And actually, it's looking really fine. He is behind by about 10 workers now. But that is a decent number of stalkers. Void Rays with overcharge, but not near a shield battery. They also have those Immortals included. The Colossus was probably a known fake, just it wasn't doing any damage, right? But that, again, does not I mean, the AI won't target it. It was kind of cute. Alright, okay. 1 Void Ray, 2 Void Ray down. Mortal goes down as well. It had its shield popped earlier on. I think there was another Void Ray that got killed. Phoenix sacrificing their lives to help out here. Okay, maybe it is bad. Maybe I should have trusted my gut. It's such a hard game to call. And certainly if MaxPax hadn't built the stasis traps, okay, that would have probably caused more losses of his air units if the stasis trap hadn't worked out, or even more probes. Maybe he loses like 6 extra probes. If he didn't still have more stasis traps, again, like these are pretty important. Maybe that fight could have been a little better. Maybe he could have taken a better angle. If MaxPax wasn't one of the only guys who ever gets practice in a game like this, I think Classic would have been in a better position. But MaxPax does have practice in games like this, although rare. He still does, more than anyone else, I would guess. And so he confidently took the 3rd base, because if he turtles on 2, because he's so scared, he's so scared, he's so scared, and then he tries to reach out towards a 3rd, well, Classic has probably just exploded economic-wise. You know, he's taken 4 bases super quickly, and has no urgency in trying to take down the air army, because he's like, oh, I'm just going to out-expand you and out-produce you. But because that 3rd came down so quickly and it was well protected by static defense and stasis traps, that kind of put a bit of pressure on Classic, who then did the attack that did not end up doing what it wanted to, and he's kind of caught in the middle of not going to either extreme. He didn't, really all in, but he also didn't all out expand in macro. So he is going to have to deal with a late game sky toss. And this is something that I think if you play StarCraft, you'll be fairly familiar with. It's the same conundrum as playing like Zerg versus Mech, where your choice is either to stop them before they get to a certain point, or just accept they're going to get to a certain point. And if you kind of do like a middle of the road thing, you're just in a far worse position as the game goes on. Interesting. 4th base, by the way, has been settled, saturated, defended. Classic's 4th was, I think, a little bit faster, but not enough. Again, had he decided not to attack and maybe MaxPax turtled more on 3 base? I don't know. I mean, I feel for Classic. I feel like Classic was supposed to have maybe a little more opportunity to end the game. And so I can't really say that he did anything wrong. It just does suck. What is this? No. Bad Classic. Someone get the water bottle. Someone get the spray bottle. What the fuck is this? This is Classic's base. Well, it's MaxPax's base, but it's Classic's base. He's gonna have flippin' energy recharge in proxy. What? Storms are effective against a very clumped up army, but this is a clumped up army that is over at least 1, maybe more shield batteries should be built to respond to this play. Upgrades at +2 for both players, actually. Just 1 ground, 1 air. Cannon starting to be pierced through. Shield batteries has been out of juice. No recharge. I guess he put it on the Oracle. 15 probes do go down. Void Rays are weakened but not dead. And the army of Classic suddenly is no longer there. It's like, I'm breaking through. I got the cannons. And then his army was dying. The storms injured the MaxPax army, but it didn't kill it. There was nothing that actually was killing all of the weakened units. And, well, now his 5th base is in a very precarious area. I think Classic is now out of ideas. Pushing into that army, although it was clumped, having to defend this location, it still was over static defense. And it still does take a decent amount of storms to actually kill these units. The Void Rays are fragile, yes, and Interceptors are, you know, can be stormed too, I guess. But still killing them, I think it would usually be some combination of a very wide, open attack path for the ground army that has storms, stalkers, and archons. And then if you get every one of those units to combat the Void Rays and the carriers, then that's how that works. But only sometimes, too. I mean, at the end of the day, the best Protoss army is going to be the mass air. It's very troublesome to get there. There's many ways that your opponent can kill you before you get to a maxed out air army. So when MaxPax was getting maxed out, I mean, that was a very bad sign for Classic. How to lose 50 guys in 10 seconds. What a fun game that was. That was interesting. Is that a shark where the cat is sleeping? It's a catfish. But seriously, that's what the thing is. It's very cute. And I'm glad they use it. In the top left of the map Pylon, it is MaxPax. In the bottom right, we have Classic. Like I said in the game, I felt for Classic for that one. I didn't have that much faith in the ground attack. And I think I was wrong on that one. I think it had way more potential on the attack, but more specifically on the macro post-attack part than I gave it credit for. I was a little too scared of what would happen if the attack didn't win. I thought the Phoenix would do more as far as counter-attacking and just running around and killing probes. And they really didn't. Their numbers were brought down quite low, and you could see how MaxPax needed to focus on Void Ray production at that time. So, yeah, you know, that was unique. I feel more learned after watching that. But I guess the point still kind of stood, which is that it's a far more awkward position for Classic, the ground-based Protoss, than maybe it is for the sky-based one. Just because you need that certain amount of number. You need that critical mass on the ground, usually with that critical upgrade blink, to really give you the full confidence of map control to either out-expand your opponent or out-micro-attack your opponent. But it could easily, you know, I say that, but of course going air toss that early on is also quite awkward. There is a reason it is not done in any other type of game. So, I think they were both in an awkward position. I think it was, at the end of the day, MaxPax's confidence is his stasis traps. I do need to continue highlighting those. The stasis traps are very important. And then his confidence to play out a game like that ultimately decided who turned out to be the victor. Because had he stayed on 2 base for any longer, I do think Classic's attack would have either killed him or significantly reduced the chances of a Sky Toss army, you know? If you keep resetting the Sky Toss army, it's very difficult to rebuild. So, yeah, the 3rd base comes down later, the static defense comes down later. The units are in a worse position later. And so that's where maybe that Stalker attack would have been able to tip the scales alongside Classic taking the gold 3rd. But it didn't. And then Classic never did the kind of bio versus mech player thing. He was never out-expanding his opponent and out-upgrading his opponent, which would usually what he'd do versus mech, versus Sky Toss, versus There's actually not really a Zerg equivalent, to be honest, but again, to a 3-base Bruthlyn Infestor player, I don't know. Once again, we got Phoenix versus Phoenix. 1 gate versus 1 gate expand. I would have to guess Classic goes with Phoenix versus Phoenix this game. But, you know, there was a lot of what-ifs in the previous game. So I don't know. Classic loses his Zealots, but is going to win the Adept War. He also is winning the Phoenix War, which is far more important. Now, he is only winning it by about half a Phoenix, so it's not incredible yet. Classic does go for a second Stargate, just seconds behind that of MaxPax. It is Phoenix versus Phoenix, and most people know my opinion. I think that MaxPax is the best Phoenix versus Phoenix player in the world. Not that he's invulnerable when he gets Phoenix versus Phoenix. He has lost it. It is a tricky, very snowbally composition, but generally I see him playing it better. I see him getting better fights on average, and better macro behind the Phoenix play as well. So that's what I'm expecting. Let's see what Classic has to bring. He is already blocking at least 1 base of MaxPax with the pylon. They'll eventually both have probes around building pylons. But right now, it's about optimizing your Phoenix production, getting the best possible build to work with that. And we see, for example, here, Classic got a slightly faster gas, but that might not be perfect as he starts to accumulate gas. It's a very, very small detail, but one that I've seen previously from other Protosses against MaxPax. MaxPax seems to always have the perfect 4th gas timing. But again, not so much that he wins because of it. It's just a little tiny detail. But he is ahead now by about half a Phoenix. Sentry is being built by Classic, so that's... So maybe his 4th gas was intentional this time, whereas I think before I saw Hero do it, and he didn't. He just ended up accumulating too much gas, so there was no reason to have that much. But he gets a Sentry. The Sentry Guardian Shield does affect air, so it does affect Phoenix battles. And Phoenix are, you know, they're 2-shot unit. They shoot twice, so Guardian Shield's very effective with it. Sentries die quickly, but then to sacrifice 1 Phoenix to Graviton Beam is actually a real consideration for the battle. So this can sometimes be a difference maker, but probably not this time. Classic not expecting the Phoenix to be this far out. Did not have his Guardian Shield with the Phoenix. Also had one of his own Phoenix kind of drifting away from the rest of his, but they're still pretty damn even on it. MaxPax dives towards that Fleet Beacon much faster, though. So even though the Phoenix count actually still slightly in his favor, more importantly, he is going to get to the Phoenix range. Classic knows that's a timer. He should also be thinking about it. First, he was thinking about getting his Nexus, however. So now his 3rd Nexus is a little bit faster than his opponent, but in a more dangerous area. Kind of. Maybe it's kind of pointless to talk about it when you're talking about Phoenix versus Phoenix battles. Does it really matter if you take the 4th instead of the 3rd? It definitely mattered in a different Phoenix game we cast 2 weeks ago or something, where having your base so close to your opponent could be a problem, but I feel like this isn't really that much more vulnerable than this one in Phoenix versus Phoenix. I don't know. I don't think so. 4th base already on the way for Classic anyway, so it'll look normal. MaxPax, again, prioritized the Fleet Beacon and the range upgrade. So his 4th Nexus is not going to be coming down anytime soon. But he has range ready. He should be sharking around for an engagement. Now, he doesn't know that his opponent isn't already also working on that range. He has limited scouting. And that maybe saves... Okay, I think he noticed, actually, in that fight. The only thing you can do when you are behind on range is to try and pounce on them. Try and get into your limited Phoenix range. Which is why Classic did kind of turn around to try and take the fight again, because there was really no other option. You can't run away from Phoenix once they've got you in their range. and you don't have the same range. Now he does, but even then, still losing another Phoenix. That's a 3 Phoenix difference. That's very dangerous territory. That's a 5 Phoenix, 6 Phoenix difference. Phoenix difference, Phoenix difference, Phoenix difference is so damn large, and that is game. Phoenix range, y'all. Phoenix range. MaxPax, 2 zeros, and will win the Monday Night Weekly without having to play a second best of 3. GG's. That's PvP, guys. That's Phoenix battles. Boom. I don't like how often we see Phoenix battles. I gotta say, you know, since I'm not on a delay here, I can kind of talk about things more naturally. Now that this tournament is done, how much are we willing to discuss how bad of a state of StarCraft there is right now? I don't mean to be dramatic, but here I am anyway. This might be one of the worst metas I've ever cast. I cast Broodlord Infestor, although limited. I was more of a player at that time, actually. And that wasn't fun either. I cast way too much Swarm Host. And that was not fun. I cast, what other painful metas have there been? You know, I cast some stupid metas that didn't last very long, like Adept versus Adept in PvP. You know, when mech dominates, I don't think that's, like, technically the healthiest thing for the scene. But it it's never really dominated every matchup for a long period of time. I don't know. This is the worst meta, I think, for Legacy of the Void. No, I'm talking about all the matchups. Mass Cyclone. Okay, Mass Cyclone is pretty stupid. Got a point there. No, but even that was at least somewhat interesting. The problem that I'm talking about here... PvP has more Phoenix versus Phoenix, but that is somewhat because we cast MaxPax more often, which doesn't happen in offline tournaments. So that's maybe more of a possibly bad meta. Otherwise, I think PvP is still fun. But PvT is really boring right now. It is extremely boring. Even if the Terran ends up winning, and... okay, so typically when a Terran wins, from what I've seen, it's a more exciting game, not because the Terran won, but because there was just more action to it. You know, the Terran gets some damage done, and does a 2-base all-in, and then it is like a big question mark, and who knows what can happen, right? But if that doesn't happen, if the Terran does do something normal, it is so boring. Nothing happens. You just watch the Protoss player get to the perfection 4-base, and the Terran gets to their perfected 3-base, sure. But then the Protoss really has so much control that the Terran never really bothers to move out. There's no Terran action. It is Terran defend, Terran defend, Terran defend. Pray to God they get a big attack. But there's just nothing that happens. And then PvZ... At least the all-ins are somewhat interesting, but they are almost all all-ins. Although Shin was surprisingly one of the guys who didn't all-in, so there is that. But if this is what we're going to be left with, almost all Protoss, because they're the ones who are more represented in the lower ends of tournaments, the beginnings of tournaments, playing these matchups where either the Zerg all-ins all the time or the Terran just like tries and fails. And then maybe Phoenix vs. Phoenix becomes more popular as more people 1-git expand. How? Like, that's all the terrible things. TVT still is as normal, but, you know, people don't like mirror matchups. And TVT always gets all the sleepy Zs. ZVZ just never happens, though. So there's that. And then just like anything with Protoss right now feels like it's gonna give us some of the most boring games. I don't know, guys. I can certainly say that these open cups have become incredibly stale. The PVTs used to be fun and diverse, so that even though it was always Clem versus MaxPax all the time for years and years, I still had fun casting it. But now it just feels sad. TVZ is fine. That's true. TVZ seems fine. But honestly, TVZ also, you could argue a lot of it is 3cc. There have been complaints about all of StarCraft 2 for a while, especially from like Brood War elitists, because, you know, they're dicks. But I feel like for the most part, it's still like, you know, you got to the 3cc versus 4 base TVZ, and then there was a lot of action and excitement. And that kind of still is the case. But you still do have an argument where, like, a lot of TVZs do not have anything happen in the first 5 minutes. And TVP used to have some things happen I thought that were interesting that kind of added up, you know, the Adept versus the Reaper versus maybe the Warp Prism versus the Drop versus, I don't know. But now it just feels like the same thing all the time. So now it's like all the, yeah, I can see your point about that, but at least there's still that. It feels less like I get to say, but there's still that. Now I'm just like, no, I think you guys actually have a point. You might be right. No notion of StarCraft 3 at all. And there just aren't any Zergs anyway. So even though Zerg is still providing some excitement in terms of ZVP all-ins, ZVZ just so rare, you're kind of excited just to see it. And ZVT is, you know, can be very fun back and forth. There just aren't that many Zergs. They've all disappeared. They're all not having fun. And, you know, so I think someone earlier on chat, they brought up, like, well, didn't Blizzard have, like, these stats available? Like, how have they not directed patches towards fixing actual imbalanced victory rates? And the answer is that this would not be the first time, if that is the case. If the case is that amongst the top 50 players in the world, it is perfectly represented win rate-wise, everyone has a 50% win rate versus everyone, that still could mean we have terrible design. Because that's what happened in Broodlord Infestor. Protoss versus Zerg was actually balanced, but it was Immortal Sentry all-in or the Mothership Vortex versus the Broodlord Infestor. Those were your options of winning versus the Zerg, and that was the option for Zerg to win. And it wasn't fun. At least after the 50 billionth time you saw the Vortex. It wasn't fun. What made game 1 of Classic vs. MaxPax interesting? Let me remember what that was. I know it was only 20 minutes ago. Oh, right, that was the really funky game. Because it was very different, and there was no conclusion that was inevitable from minute, like, 5 or 6. Like, every part of it was like, oh, well, this could be, and then I could see that working, and then this could also do the thing. PvP without Phoenix vs. Phoenix is actually generally like that, though. You know, you're like, well, you know, the pro production stopped for this guy, and the gateways came down faster for that guy, and this guy skipped the forge, and this guy pushed off the robo, and there's just like a lot of differences that were important in comparison to the other guy. Yeah, Sarah, stop nerfing us. We need a buff bunker build time. Revert the patch, but only one specific thing. The bunker must be able to salvage while being attacked. Fix StarCraft. But yeah, I am legitimately concerned for the value of watching StarCraft at this point in time. We are stuck with the pro gamers that we've had for a long time, so that was always going to be a challenge. There is not a lot of new blood, so that's always been a challenge. But if the games were fun enough, then I think we were all okay with that. If Clem and Cyril still have the most epic best of sevens ever, then we're like, okay, that's fine. But, you know, now we have the same players, the same results, roughly, and also very similar looking games that don't have a lot of action. StarCraft 2 guys going to Brood War. I highly doubt that'll happen. People who went to Brood War were Brood War players first. If we're talking about the Koreans who did it. Why no more Zerg? That's actually a very interesting question. Because people will maybe be quick to say, well, Zerg isn't fun to play. And that is basically a fact at this point. I think with the representation of Zerg in tournaments, but also on the ladder. And my own experience having never had fun with Zerg. I don't know. I do think Zerg has become less fun to play, sure. But I don't think that is why it started to phase out. Because Zerg started to stop. Zerg used to be all over the place all the time. Up until probably 2018. Yeah. Something like that. Well, 2019 also was pretty bad. Remember that Nidus meta? Ah! Just think of all the bad metas. But still, that's like 5-6 years where Zerg has been steadily dying out for representing tournaments. And I don't really know what started that. It could be... A lot of Zergs might have been overrepresented. Well, they were certainly overrepresented for a long time. In the fact that there was too many of them, but also they all got a boost from Broodlord Infestor. Broodlord Infestor was also a meta where there was some of the most money being put into StarCraft, and at a time where they were starting to specifically put money towards underdeveloped regions. That was when the WCS system existed, and they were like handing out money to like the UK specifically. So you had Johnny Rico, Broodlord Infestor his way to a nice prize. So that was always overrepresented. But then, even if it balanced out because Broodlord Infestor wasn't overpowered anymore, why would Zerg continue to fall off? I don't know. I think they'll go to AoE 4. Oh, I think there'll definitely be some pro gamers who move to other RTSs. That's true. But they're going to have to do it while simultaneously getting a part-time job, or because there's no RTS that gives them enough money, even if they suddenly are the best at that RTS, that could actually sustain. There are full-time Age of Empire people, but they often also have a sizable content creation gig. And a lot of our top pros do not have that. So like Lambo could. And even Mana has really built up his presence. But, Cyril's never touched content creation. So even if he literally became the best Age of Empires 2 and 4 player, maybe he could actually do both. I don't know if that would be enough money. Yeah, but then Hydra speed. What is it called? The Hydra. Is it actually called Lunge? That's the name they chose. Son of a bitch. Okay. Hydra Lunge is actually kind of fun. I certainly was when I used it one time. But it is a hive tech. Not gotten very often. One of the reasons my GF likes Brood War is because mutas in StarCraft 2 got nerfed. No, I could see that. I think mutas were a damn fun way to play and watch Zerg. And yeah, they are barely used anymore. Yeah. Hydra thrust. It's a little sad. You know, it kind of seems to all be coming at the same time as well, like all the bad news and then the lack of new players and then the lack of new builds and the lack of diverse play styles and all the matchups. It's all kind of coming out at once. Thought mutas were a bit overpowered. That would have been a while ago. Call Shadong. Janong's doing well in ASL. I'm very excited about that. Need something to counter Phoenix else than Phoenix. They're kind of... The problem is trying to get there without taking damage, yeah. And again, Phoenix versus Phoenix is hopefully still rare enough if you take MaxPax out of the equation. Why can't I join as member of the channel? You mean like the paid thing? I'm not sure. I thought I set it up, but I have to double check the settings. StarCraft 2 is 15 years old now. Well, 14 and a half. Yeah, it's lasted longer than Tekken 8. I don't know. And there's nothing we can do about it either. The only thing that we can do about it right now is ask the maps to be even crazier. Because I don't think the maps doing these little differences are going to be enough. I think we need to start from scratch. I think we need to go back to Xel'Naga Caverns, guys. We need 20-second rush distances, no guaranteed expansions, too much dead space to be comfortable. What else to find early games? Early maps. I bet Chad doesn't even know what a bonjour is. All this goat discussion. Where's the bonjour discussion? You could start playing. That would spice things up. That's true. There's no join button. I could have sworn I set that up. But I will have to double check. I miss having the SimCity wall from the bottom of my main ramp to expand. Good old diagonal wall to your Nexus. Yeah. Yeah, it's not like other RTS really, you know, ever actually replaced StarCraft 2. Find the spells in an odd spot. You mean like Storm and Fungal and EMP and stuff? 5 cents before expand. Hell yeah. You're up with me, please. Thank you for the gifted sub. But I really do think it needs to be a significant change. I think we need to throw the rule book out, and because it's just boring, and it feels so figured out that having a period where even a race, let's say Zerg gets the short end of the stick. Which would be probably the worst result, because Zerg is already having trouble. But let's say Zerg gets the short end of the stick, because they don't get a guaranteed natural in third base. I think we'd have to live with that for... The greats are good. And, you know, we just have to hope that things are figured out. But if we're going to keep tiptoeing around this, like, automatic 3-base scenario, where I think we're going to get the same thing all the time. Zero Space is still coming out, yeah. It's actually playable, I think. Thank you for another gifted sub. But nothing is as good as StarCraft. It's just StarCraft has almost reached a point where it's too figured out. Make 6-minute bio ball overpowered again. Exactly. Ambitious experiments, reset, rapid iteration, A/B testing, new map features, anti-large destructible rocks, merc camps. Yeah. Tankivax. That'll fix it. The whole game would change if they gave us working broodlords. I guess I don't really like broodlords as the gameplay though. Honestly, like maybe then Zerg wouldn't all in all the time versus Protoss, and maybe late game TVZ wouldn't be as turtly. You could argue, I guess, but I don't really like broodlords. They are turtles or turtle breakers. They don't scream fun to me. But that's, you know, that's kind of a whole thing about StarCraft. Where the late game, you know, it does have these powerful late game units, but they're often units that encourage camping and turtling. SC2 Evo is more interesting to watch right now, for sure. Yeah. Well, I said it. I brought out my truth. I think it's...
Warning.
It's in a bad place right now, and even if that was only because it's nothing but online tournaments, maybe the offline tournaments, or let's say the bigger online tournaments, would have a little bit more of a mix-up. But we're not getting a lot of those, so the point still stands. 2 more gifted subs. Thank you very much. So yeah, I just, I mean, I don't want it to continue this way, that's for sure. Maybe I'll make another real talk strategy. And we can talk about this with the other commentators. Anyway, I am going to end the stream now, so thanks for the conversation, guys. Thank you. Be rough with me, please, for all these gifted subs. And I will leave you with Apollo, because he is very cute. Thank you, everyone. I will see you Wednesday. Bye-bye.